Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the very first day of the sixth annual She Is Me conference. I'm Lisa Jimenez, and I'm the founder of She Is Me. I want to thank you all for joining us today from all over the world. We appreciate you coming to witness this sisterhood and this amazing group of women who have come together to share their stories and to create community. We are here to lift each other up, to support each other, and to tell our truths in a safe and shame-free and non-judgmental place that was built for the reason for women to come here and be safe and to share their stories. So we are really, really excited to bring Keisha Blair in. She's going to be our first speaker today. She's amazing. So we'll introduce her in just a second. We've got a full lineup today. We've got a panel tonight. We're talking about financial freedom and how to have sovereignty and to support yourself, and how we can change the systems that don't support us in our financial health, and how we can move forward and um, be independent. And so it's really important that you join us for that panel. We've got some amazing panelists tonight. We've also got panels for the next 4 nights in a row through Saturday night. We're going to be talking about the war on women tomorrow night. We're going to be talking about leadership on Friday night, and we're going to be talking about Project 2025 and women's healthcare and rights and so on Saturday night. It's going to be a fantastic week. We have over 50 speakers this week, so please join us every day. And we've got a full day, so we're starting at 7 in the morning every day. Sorry, my dog is here in the background. We're starting at 7 Pacific every day, and we're ending around 5:30. So we're going to have a full day, but the speakers are amazing. And I will be back at 10 with my keynote and to tell you what's going on in 2026, because there are some really big things that we're launching, and we want to raise voices around the world. So you can participate in so many ways. So come, stay tuned, turn this on, stream it in the background, listen all day, listen to these amazing women and their wonderful stories. And without further ado, I'm going to bring in Keisha Blair. Hi, Keisha.
Hi, good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning. Keisha is an electrician, an executive, and an entrepreneur. And honestly, her story was amazing. So I wanted to bring her in because I think she's so unique. And I know there are plenty of women out there who would say she is me because they're not being represented. And I wanted to make sure that she was here and we heard her voice. So, Keisha, take it away.
All right, well, thank you, thank you, thank you. So, my name is Keisha L. Blair, and I like to use that L in my middle name. It's just a reminder that sometimes you have to take a lot of L's in life to get to where you want to be. So, today I am just going to take you on my journey of learning and transformation of how I became the CEO of my life. And CEO is a system and framework that I created to build myself back up from the inside out after an unexpected shift. And CEO stands for Create, Eliminate, Organize. Now, people know me as Keisha the electrician. And yes, I am a real electrician. That's usually the question that I get after I tell people that I'm an electrician. So I have spent 30 years in the skilled trades as an electrician. I started my career in the electrical apprenticeship back in 1995 with IBW, which is International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. And I went through an apprenticeship program that was 5 years. I had to work 8,000 hours and get on the job training on different construction sites. And after that, I became a journeyman wireman electrician. And I decided to take my exam to become licensed in 2000. So I am a licensed journeyman wireman electrician. And, I spent about 15 years on different construction sites all across the country. Mostly here in Memphis, Tennessee, which is where I live. And I worked on different buildings and schools and industrial plants all across the city. And actually, my first project was the Kellogg building. And if you live in Memphis, you know that that is the building on Airways with the green stripe around it. Um, When I first started, every job site that I went on, I felt like that I had to prove myself. So, if you could imagine me being 21 years old, young, I was married at the time, had my oldest son who's now 30, but he was only like 9 months old. And I was standing on that job site, and I didn't realize that, there were so many things that I had to prove every single day. I had to prove myself. I was so nervous. I didn't even have the right tools that I needed, in every job site that I went on, I felt like uh, I had to realize that, the only person that was going to show up for me was myself. So they would always put me on the hardest jobs possible. I would either do something like digging a ditch in the rain, working outside in freezing cold weather, outside of a building, working up high, or even running 4-inch pipe outside in the summertime. And sometimes in Memphis, it gets really hot. And most of the time, I was the only woman on the job site. And I remember one time I had an apprentice, and someone walked in the room and they started talking to him, asking him all of these questions. And he's just looking like a deer in headlights. And he says, "You need to ask my journeyman those questions." And the person said to him, "Well, where is he at?" And he said, "Well, she is over there." So, no matter what, I was always the apprentice and never the journeyman, and definitely not the foreman, even when I became a foreman. So I felt like I had to make myself marketable. So I went back to school. I went back to school after I got my apprenticeship. I mean, after I got my journeyman's license, and I earned 2 degrees in information technology. And I also received a certification in instrumentation for process improvement, because I felt like that if I ever wanted to go beyond the construction site and go to the corner office and climb the corporate ladder, that I had to do those things to make myself more marketable. So, in 2010, I decided to go into maintenance, and I took a job with a company here in Memphis called Riviana Foods as an electrical and instrumentation technician. So if you don't know what Riviana Foods is, if you buy rice, more than likely you bought something that they produce because they make a lot of rice. And but that's where I began to climb the corporate ladder, so to speak. And I broke barriers as a woman in male-dominated fields that I didn't even realize that I was doing at the time. Um, eh, Excuse me. And over my 30 years in the trades, I have had a lot of firsts. And one of the first things that I wanted to do is I wanted to give back. And I went back to the IBEW apprenticeship program in Memphis, Tennessee, and I became their first female instructor. Actually, at the time, the program director, he actually told me that I was the first woman that ever even showed interest in wanting to teach. So, I was really proud of that. And excuse me, drink some water here. Um, and as I began to climb the corporate ladder, I thought that in order for me to make real change, I had to get into management. So I started working for a company here in Memphis once again called FedEx Express. And, I was promoted 7 times in 10 years. And at the height of my career, I became their first female senior manager of properties and facilities. And what made it even more special is that they announced it on Women's Day, which was March 8th of 2023. I felt like at that time that I had everything that I wanted. I set out to excel, I set out to achieve, and I had won top awards. I had, oh my goodness, I think I had 170 locations in 7 different states. I had a team of 300 men, and I even had my corner office. So I was really, really excited about having all this. And I felt like I was efficient and I was executing at the highest level possible for me. And I even had my life all planned out. I said that I wanted to be a transformational speaker. I said that I wanted to do that after I retired. So I figured my retirement date was like 16 years off at that time, right? I said, I'm going to retire on May 31st of 2039. So I said, I'm going to give myself some time and I'm going to start working on being a transformational speaker. So I would, think about, well, it's going to take roughly like 11 years to become an expert. I thought about as an apprentice, 5 years, going into my journeyman, 6 years. So I said, okay, I'm going to give myself like 11 years to start working on being a transformational speaker, and think about becoming an entrepreneur. And usually as you become an entrepreneur, there are 3 different phases. You have your novice phase, your part-time phase, and then you have your full-time phase. So I was in my novice phase to where I said, I watched different people on YouTube. I used to watch Les Brown, Tony Robbins, and I would watch ET all the time, right? So I said, well, in order for me to really start doing this, I'm going to join a speakers program. So I joined this program called Next Level Speakers Academy, and signed up to be one of their members. And I actually went and got on stage for the first time in October of 2023. And I stood on stage in front of the number one motivational speaker in the world, Dr. Eric Thomas. And at that moment, I realized that I was not ready. And I could not do what he did, not at that time. And it's the reason why, it took 5 years to get through the apprenticeship program. It took those 8,000 hours. It was probably going to take just as long for me to become this transformational speaker that I was looking at being once I retired. So, what I did was I realized that, okay, it's time for me to start focusing on my craft a little bit more. So I continued to listen. I continued to grow. And one thing that I really loved about being in this program was that I was celebrated when I was there. So I got this dopamine hit every time, when I was around these people. Now, what I didn't realize was 5 months later that something else would really happen to me that I really didn't even expect. You know, on March 21st, I woke up that morning and, like any other, went into work, swiped my badge on my corner office with the glass on it, and opened up my email. And there was an email there that said that, I had to meet with my director that afternoon. And I thought, okay, this is kind of weird because you know me, I was there at like 5 a.m. in the morning. So I thought, interesting. So I went on about my day. And as the day went on, there was this report of, a downsizing at the company, other people who were losing their jobs. And I thought, well, this really couldn't be about me because I was executing at a high level. I had a team of 300. I was the first female senior manager of properties and facilities maintenance. And, there's no way that I could possibly get caught up in this. Well, after my day went on and I went to that meeting on March 21st of 2024, my position was eliminated. And in that moment, I was faced with two choices, either panic or pivot. I had that role to where I thought it defined me of being the first female senior manager of maintenance for 1 year and 8 days. But I realized in that moment that I took a L, and I had to shift unexpectedly. So, you know, between pivot or panic, the first thing that I did was honestly I panicked. That was my first response. I sat there, my anxiety was high. Um, you know, I didn't really understand what I needed to do. I felt like that this was a job that I was going to have for the next 15 years until I retired on May 31st of 2039. But I didn't realize it then that that was the best thing that could have happened to me because on paper I was winning, but in real life I was losing me. I was 277 pounds. I was overweight. I was obese, and I had been hospitalized 3 times within the past month because my blood pressure had spiked over 181, over 114. I was stressed. I was working 16 hours a day, and still my motto was to my team, if I can do it, so can you. Um, but the truth was, I was burnt out and I didn't even realize it. If you ever heard that phrase, work until your idols become your rivals? Well, I actually worked until my mentors became my rivals, and some of them actually became my enemies. And I just thought it was all them, didn't even think about it being me. And so, honestly, that day when my position was eliminated on March 21st, the reality didn't even sink in. I had to go and pack up my office, put the things that belonged to me in boxes, and walk them out to my car. Uh, my director walked me out and he shook my hand. And what I didn't realize at that moment was that that was the last time that I was going to swipe my badge on the glass door to my corner office. That was the last time I was going to be known as the first female senior manager of maintenance. So that next morning when I woke up, that's when the reality really set in. And I realized that my position was eliminated. And I realized that I had been catapulted into full-time entrepreneurship. Well, honestly, at that time, it was kind of part-time because I still had 10 weeks. If you've been in these positions to where you've lost a job and you've been in upper management, they usually give you a package to where you may still be on the payroll for a few more weeks. So I had about 10 weeks to, go into this part-time phase, but I wanted to work really fast, to make sure that I got to where I wanted to be. So, I knew that I wasn't ready. Honestly, I didn't really know what to do. All I knew is that I had to move forward, even though I really didn't have all the answers. And the question that I asked myself over and over again was, who am I now beyond the titles, beyond the awards, beyond the corner office? Who am I now if I'm not the first female senior manager of maintenance? So yeah, I felt lost because my identity, it was tied to my title. Um, and I had to realize that I needed to surrender. I needed to surrender my ego and surrender my pride. And I realized that the cost of proving myself every day to people, it really wasn't worth the trips to the hospital. It really wasn't worth all the weight that I gained. It wasn't really worth all the stress that I put myself through every day. And then I realized that sometimes God uses eliminations just to get our attention. And He definitely used that one to get my attention. And then I realized that the position was eliminated. I wasn't eliminated, I was elevated. And, that is really when I started to pivot. Um, and sometimes when life shifts unexpectedly, you just have to grow as you go. And for me, growing was me wanting to understand more about myself because I was angry inside. I didn't understand why all those things were happening, but I knew I just had to move forward. So, I continued to watch YouTube. I continued to watch all these motivational speakers as I thought, okay, I'm going to go and be this transformational speaker. This is what I want to do. Um, and then on my screen, I saw this advertisement for something called Flight Assessment by the person that I watch, Dr. Eric Thomas. And he talked about gaining clarity, and I can get all this. So I said, you know what? I think that's what I'm missing now that I've surrendered. I need that awareness. So what I did was, I had to lean all in because what I realized is that I wasn't happy with me. And, having a successful career was not fulfilling to me at the time. I thought it was, but it wasn't. So, at the end of those 10 weeks, I had a choice to make again, but I could have gone back to corporate, but I chose to pivot and I chose to bet on myself. No roadmap, no blueprint, just me doing the inner work on myself, using the assessment along the way just to gain that clarity, that I heard Dr. Thomas talk about. So what I did was, once again, I just had to let go of all the control that I had because I was trying to control everything around me. I controlled the 300 guys. I controlled the processes. I controlled all these different things, and I had to just let go of all that control and just focus on who God created me to be, and just be authentically myself. And what I started to do is I started to join other programs to where I felt like I was celebrated and not just tolerated. Um, and, in these different programs, I wanted to be around people who wanted to see me win and not just tear me down. And that is when I think that I had my true rebirth. And that was when I had my becoming. What I did from that point on is I realized that I needed to do something different to cause that shift. I needed to do something different. So in June of 2024, I actually went to a conference for Next Level Speakers Academy, and they actually had a lot of pastors there, and they did an altar call. And my son was with me at this conference, and my son was 17 years old at the time. And they asked if anyone would like to get baptized. And my son told me he wanted to get baptized. So that was a real special moment because at 14, I didn't have that choice. My parents made that choice for me. So I felt like, I was really proud of him for making that choice for himself. So on the morning of June 8th, when he was scheduled to be baptized, while he was sleeping, I looked at him and I was listening during my morning routine and listening to certain things, and a song came on. It was called "I Surrender," And I thought about how he made that choice. And I wanted to make that choice with him. So on June 8th of 2024, my son and I, we got baptized together. And that was one of the things that I did to start my becoming. And another thing that I started doing in that moment was I started to write my book. I started my own podcast, and I developed my mantra, don't stop, keep climbing. Because sometimes there's always going to be adversity. On the other side of adversity is always opportunity. And, you know, I stopped listening to all of the additional things around me. I stopped listening to all the noises. And the title of my book and my podcast is Alpha Intuition. So I felt like I had to turn in and tune in to my own alpha intuition and just to remind myself of who I was before the titles, before the corner office, before the team of 300, but then also before the stress, before the anxiety, before all of those things. And I learned to trust my own intuition. And instead of leaning into that fear and leaning into that anxiety, I leaned all the way into becoming an entrepreneur, and I chose to make myself my first client. And that is when I developed my CEO mindset framework, which stands for create, eliminate, organize. It helped to take me from where I was to where I wanted to be. Now, the CEO mindset framework is a blueprint that I developed just to rebuild my life from the inside out after I had that huge shift. And, I designed it to take me from being angry to being able. And I had to align myself with my actions by using my energy, frequency, and vibration just to transform myself. So, once again, on my way to being this transformational speaker, this is one of the things that I did. And because when you decide to become the CEO of your life, it starts from building yourself from the inside out. So each one of these pillars that I've created, it shows you a different way just to approach your life and how you make decisions, leading in all the way to your purpose. So let me see, I'm going to go through these. All right, so create. The first pillar is about creating an environment that supports your peace. Like I said, you have to surround yourself with people who believe in you, with people who support your vision, and with people who support your growth. And also, you have to build routines and habits that align with your highest priority and goals. And don't worry about what other people say. So, like I said, my morning routine, the one thing that I don't do is I don't let a lot of negative things into my environment that early in the morning. I try to cultivate things in my life to where they help to build me up. And I created an evening routine. Your evening routine is just as important as your morning routine. What time you go to sleep determines sometimes what time you wake up. Um, and it's all about you basically establishing boundaries that protect your peace. And what I realized is I had to establish a boundary with myself first to determine what I was going to put in my body, when I was going to go to sleep. Um, Something as simple as before I started this call, turning off my alerts so that my phone doesn't control me and I control the flow for the things that I want in my environment. Because when you take control of what you have around you, then you take control of who you become. All right, the next pillar is eliminate. Now, this one, it takes a lot of courage for this phase because it has to do with sometimes eliminating someone or something that you love. But in order for growth to happen, you have to eliminate those things that no longer align with your energy. So for me, what I had to do was I had to eliminate some things that were holding me back. I had to eliminate some things that caused me to gain weight. I had to eliminate some things that, you know, put me in a stressful state. I had to eliminate things like Coca-Cola, eliminate things like chocolate, eliminate things like fried foods. Because these things actually, I thought they were helping me out in those stressful moments and keeping me, alive to where I wanted to be. No, those things were actually keeping me at 277 pounds. Well, after I eliminated all those things, now I weigh 195. So I had to remove a lot of the toxins and a lot of the toxic things out of my life to help me to get to where I want to be. Um, I had to remove a lot of other things that were draining me. So I call those EDAs, energy draining activities. Remove distractions. And sometimes distractions can be disguised as the things that we call nouns, people, places, and things. And But it all started with me basically just setting boundaries with myself, because sometimes elevation requires elimination. And the last pillar here is organize. And this is basically about organizing your time and your energy. So it's about time management and energy management, and prioritizing activities that raise your energy up. So for me, I love to dance in the mornings. During my morning routine, I make sure I put on a really great song, and it gets my blood flowing. It helps me to get more active. It helps me to have more energy first thing in the morning so that I can go ahead and face my day and whatever else comes along with it. Some people like to exercise. I like to ride my Peloton, or I'll go outside and I'll just take a walk and be at one with nature. But you make sure that you do the things that raise your energy level up. And sometimes it is spending time with people who want to see you win. you know. So when you spend that time with people who want to see you win, they help to celebrate you. They help to encourage you, even when you don't feel like encouraging yourself. Now, the last thing I want to say for organize is that you need to structure your day around the times that you have the most energy. So for me, it's early in the morning, which is why I was so happy to be the first one up at 9 a.m. because that's right around the time that I start my day. Um, and you have to organize your thoughts and your schedule and your environment, because that clarity that you get from being organized, it helps to raise the frequency and vibration of you. And when you operate from a place of order and clarity, you stop reacting to life and you actually start to live it. So let me just recap. So you have: create a supportive environment, eliminate stress and distractions, and prioritize your energy, frequency, and vibration. All right. So as you begin the climb, you get to a place to where sometimes you have to understand that you have to adjust to new altitudes. As I climbed higher on the corporate ladder, I didn't realize this, you know but growth is not linear, and every new level brings a new challenge. So one of my favorite documentaries to watch is climbing Mount Everest. um, and I watched as the climbers, they would stop at certain levels. They had to adjust and make sure that their breathing was adequate for the oxygen at the level that they were at before they continued their climb. They didn't rush. They didn't rush to the top of that mountain. So symbolically, I think about that when you climb higher, the air gets thinner, the circles get smaller. Um, the people, they're different at different levels. And sometimes when you climb real fast, that's when you experience that burnout. So for me, even when I said, okay, I'm going to make up in time what I lack in skill, what I was really doing, I was burning myself out. And for me, what that burnout looked like was 277 pounds, me gaining weight. It looked at the 181 over 114, the high blood pressure, me waking up at 3 a.m. just to answer emails, even though I had gone to bed at midnight, so I got poor sleep. That's what climbing too fast will do. And it will make you look around and you won't even recognize the person that you are. And what works at one level doesn't always work at the next level. So as you climb, remember that new altitudes, they require new attitudes. New attitudes require new strategies, and new strategies require new support systems. And on your climb, just remember that you have to rest, you have to recover, and you have to recalibrate at every phase before you get to the next phase. So, in this phase of my journey that I'm in right now, I'm learning how to build from the ground up. And one of the most powerful lessons that I learned when climbing the corporate ladder, of being in those rooms, of being on those construction sites, is that most of the time, uh, I'm never going to have a seat at the table, that I had to build my own. So, as an entrepreneur, I'm learning how to build the things that I need to have. And I don't wait for someone to give it to me, I just start. So, I'm learning how to build a business. I'm learning how to build relationships. And I'm learning how to connect with people in a different way that I connected with them in the corporate environment. I'm learning how to build myself as a full-time entrepreneur. So in order for me to keep that momentum going, I thought about what am I going to do to make all these connections? What am I going to do to help myself out? So what I did was I went back to the thing that helped me in the beginning when I started my pivot back almost like 2 years ago now. And what I did was I went back to the flight assessment. I went back to the assessment that helped me to understand more about myself so I could understand how to connect with others. And I became a certified flight assessment disc trainer. And I started training under the same person that helped me, that was my mentor, Dr. Eric Thomas. And I learned to understand things about myself that I never knew. I learned so much about myself, but I learned to connect with like-minded people on a different level. And what I did was I learned how to collaborate instead of compete, because in the corporate environment, there's a lot of competing that goes on, a lot of competitive environments. Well, when you become an entrepreneur, you need to learn to center yourself around people who want to collaborate and not compete. So I think one of the biggest things that I realized in this moment was that God will connect you to people that align with your purpose. So for me, building my own table meant aligning with my true assignment and aligning with the work that I was meant to do. And for me, what does that look like? That looks like my nonprofit that I have, the Pink Tool Project. With the Pink Tool Project, it's about empowering women in the skilled trades. And I'm going to tell you where that name came from. On the job site early on, when I was an apprentice, I would have guys that would always want to take my tools. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go get a whole bunch of pink tools, because if I get pink tools and they take them, then I'm going to know that they're mine. So years later, when I thought about naming my nonprofit, I named it the Pink Tool Project. And it's where, I help women to understand more about the skilled trades. And my goal is to actually start a mentorship program to where I mentor girls when they start in apprenticeship programs to make it all the way through, and understand that just because you are the only one on the job site, just because you are the only one in the room and no one else looks like you, doesn't mean that you can't do it. Because the only thing that I can't do is tell myself what I can't do. So, all right. So, I had to realize that I had to embrace the unknown on this journey of becoming the CEO of my life. And becoming the CEO of my life, it took a lot of courage, and it takes courage daily, because there are no guarantees, there are no certainties, and there are definitely no safety nets. When you choose to pivot and you step into the unknown, that's where transformation really happens. That's where I discovered that I had strengths that I didn't even know existed inside of me. And that's really where I became the person that I know that I was meant to be, the person that God created me to be. So, along this 2 year journey of learning and transformation, um, I'm going to continue to climb. This climb has taken me to places that I never, ever imagined I would be. I would just sit in certain rooms, or I would sit on my computer and I would think and say, I want to do that. I could do that. And never even thought that I actually could. 2 weeks ago, I stood on a TEDx stage and I gave my first TEDx talk, to where I shared my idea about reimagining education in a digital age. Had no idea that I was ever going to do that. Um, I'm writing my book, Alpha Intuition, Don't Stop, Keep Climbing. It's a suitable name for it because of where I am right now in my life, where I can continue to share those powerful lessons with people all around the world. So this alignment that I have, the alignment didn't really happen overnight. The alignment happens with the daily practice. So just like, I talked about my son being 18 years old. He's in college now, but I remember his first day of kindergarten. He went to school and he came home, and he woke me up from my sleep after he got home, and he said to me, Mommy, I completed kindergarten. I'm ready for first grade. So I laughed and I told him, well, it's going to take a little bit longer than one day. but I remember him starting his first day of college um, this past fall. And just to think about the process all those years, it seemed like it was just yesterday. So it doesn't happen overnight. When you grow, growth happens. It is a process. So what I had to do, I had to learn to listen to my alpha intuition. I had to create a supportive environment, had to eliminate the things that no longer serve me, and had to organize my priorities around the things that truly mattered, like spending time with my children, like pouring into myself, like making sure that my health is maintained so that I could be here for them and so I could see them and their children. And so I can build my own table with people who collaborate and not compete. Now, as I look back on my journey from an electrician to an executive to an entrepreneur, the one thing that I have realized is that the climb never really ends because every summit reveals a new peak, every peak reveals another achievement, and every new achievement opens a new door of endless possibilities. And so, as you continue to climb on your journey and you're faced with different oppositions, just remember that on the other side of adversity is always opportunity. And you don't have to have it all figured out. All you have to do is make sure you make that choice not to panic, to pivot. And you need to take that first step because the journey to the top of any mountain begins with one single step. So don't stop, keep climbing. And along the way, remember, you keep that energy. So I want to thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to share my story with you. But the journey doesn't have to stop here. So let's please stay connected. If you would, please follow me on Instagram where my name is Keisha underscore the underscore electrician. Or you can go to my website at KeishaLBlair.com, or you can listen in to the Alpha Intuition podcast as I continue to help people to share their stories and help to transform people. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Keisha, thank you. Thank you so much. What an amazing story.
Thank you. I appreciate the time.
So many of the things that you said I could relate to, the climbing the corporate ladder and working your ass off, like you said, giving just everything you have to this career, and then all of a sudden being told, yeah, you're not needed anymore for whatever reason.
Exactly.
It's such a wake-up call. I just saw a book yesterday. Somebody was advertising about, it said good girls get fired or something like that.
I've read that book before. I know which one you're speaking. It's probably around here. I got hundreds of books
Yeah,
around.
yeah.
Exactly.
And I
Or
laughed and I was
good
like,
girls don't get the corner office.
no, this was about getting fired,
Okay.
but yeah, I kind of laughed about that because I can't, I was a consultant for 20 years and knowing that, you know, not knowing if my contract was going to get renewed or what was happening, and leading huge teams in big companies, lots of lots of big numbers, and again, answering emails at 2 in the morning, and
Mhm.
all of the things, doing it right, and still there's no guarantee, right?
Absolutely.
So one of the things we were chatting in the live stream, um, uh, people were cheering you on, like, let's go TEDx stage, yeah, the elimination phase, makes me feel better. I don't have it all figured out. Um, I feel like the CEO of my own life. Oh, somebody said, "Oh Lord, not Coca-Cola and fried food."
Together with chocolate, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I did the same thing. I just stressed myself out till I was sick, and so. Oh, I appreciated your story, and I love all of your phases that you've been through, and reinventing yourself and never stopping, and just becoming this amazing woman that you are. So thank you for being here with us today. We so appreciate you, and we're so happy that you joined us.
Well, thank you so much. And I look forward to continuing on this journey. And I look forward to watching all the other wonderful speakers that are going to be coming up. And I thank you for allowing me the opportunity to go first. I don't have to worry about that anxiety that I get from all those nerves. So I appreciate you, Lisa. Thank you so much.
No, it was great to have you kick off this the conference today. So thank you, Keisha. We will be back at the top of the hour with Jennifer Hess Williamson. So stay tuned. Thank you.